Good day, Daily Prescription viewers. It's Dana and Arlene here with you all on this lovely Thursday morning. And every week we like to do a nice character from the Bible. And today we are going to talk about Elizabeth. Now, we always encourage you all to read the accounts that we'll be speaking of so that you all can get a better understanding of what we are talking about. And today, I want to focus on Luke chapter 1. And you all can read it yourselves because Aline and I will just be pulling points from it so that you all can understand more of Elizabeth. And Aline, Elizabeth means God is my oath.
Okay.
All right. Elizabeth, from reading this account now, you see where she was the wife of Zachariah.
Zachariah, yes.
They were both spiritually grounded. She walked blamelessly in all the commandments of God. Now imagine that. Now, we know that we are not perfect.
Right.
Only God is perfection. But Aline, imagine you following. Now we know, right, the first 10 commandments in tip of your fingers.
Right.
But there's more. There's hundreds more.
Right.
So imagine you following and obeying all of God's laws.
Yeah.
You think you can handle that?
Yeah, the Bible, I mean, that's a standard to follow. The Bible records that they were both righteous before God, walking in all the commandments and ordinances of the Lord, blameless. And that's the first thing we want to pull in with Elizabeth. We want to be like her. We want to look like to follow, walking in all the commandments, because just if we was to go through the 10 commandments, there's a teaching that and I don't want to pull in any teaching, but the way of the master, sometimes when we identify, we go through the 10 commandments, we are guilty, right? And we are not righteous. And we are seeing here that this standard that Elizabeth, this characteristic, she was blameless before the Lord. She was walking in all God's commandments. And it helps us to remember in our day-to-day situation, ask ourselves, how could we be like Elizabeth? How could we be blameless before the Lord? So she wholly followed the Lord, Dana. And I know you mentioned that she was the cousin, she was a wife of a priest named Zachariah, but also, and I don't want to get into too many of details, but she was the cousin of Mary, who is the mother of Jesus. So that lineage, Elizabeth came from that background with, holy people, upright people, blameless people. But you know what, Dana? Elizabeth had a problem. The Bible records in Luke chapter 1 that she had no child because Elizabeth was barren and they were now stricken in years. She was more advanced in years. She had a woman, Dana. Okay,
Yes. So imagine that. Imagine you living your life wholly and acceptably unto God. Right? You're obeying his commandments, you're following all the promises, you're relying on God. And as I said, that problem that she had where she couldn't conceive, right? And she was past the age, because I know sometimes from nowadays they say that once you pass 40, that is it for a woman. That is it. She can't have no more children and stuff like that, right? And I know they mentioned where at the age of 88, she then had a child, right? But before we jump to there now, Aline, you doing all the right things that God expects of you to do as a young woman, as a believer in Christ. Now, God made this promise to you, right? That yes, you will conceive. But when you see you past 40 years and you ain't see nothing, then you start to wonder and question, what, when, why, how? Where is the child? Is it that my sister child are going to say about? Is it my family? You understand? You start questioning yourself to see where the promise is really going to fit in, right? And for Elizabeth to be holding on to God's word and to really trusting that he will keep his promise, it really goes to show that characteristic alone is something to really stand up for, because it goes to show that she's faithful. She's really a righteous woman. She completely put that her trust, and she was completely committed to God. You could have sit there and study your friends and your family saying all these negative things to you, right? That you would never have a child, God just probably say it. You could just assume of things that she would have had to deal with as a woman, wanting a child and not getting the child the way that she expected. But then you see latter part where she did eventually conceive.
Yeah.
right? So how do you think you could handle a situation like that, holding on to a promise from God for so many years and not seeing the timing that you would have wanted to see that result come to pass?
You know, the Bible talks about, faith without works is dead. And, and she had faith. And sometimes faith is not, faith is the substance of things hoped for, but the evidence of things not seen. And in so many years now, she had no child. She was barren. And in those days, being barren is a big taboo thing, right? And the Bible records that she, even after, because you're saying she's so stricken in years, an old woman,
Yeah.
she would have gone through people heckling her. She would have gone through people saying all kind of things. So she would have gone through, but I prayed, and why God not answering my prayers? But the Bible still records that she wholly followed the Lord. She was still a faithful woman. We don't even want to even go as far as saying that she represented what we will call today a Proverbs 31 woman. And she reflected the fruit of the Spirit throughout her tenure, that she still did not have answer to pray. So that tells me too that the attitude or the posture that we need to have when we do not have answer to prayer, she still followed the Lord. And yet now later on in verse 13, it came to say that the angel came and show up and saying, for your prayers have been heard. And you know what? That's an encouragement to us so many years after the Lord, the angel of the Lord came and said, your prayers have been heard. Thy wife Elizabeth will bear thee a son, and thou shalt call his name John. Like, what? You now hearing your prayers being heard now, and you like you're flabbergasted, right? You're in amazement. But similarly, you can say that with God, all things are possible, and it happens in God's perfect timing. And you know what? It excites me that it brought a joy and it brought a gladness. And so many times we are in different situations, and when we are hearing that we are praying and we don't have the answer to prayer, sometimes we just get real sad. And we downtrodden, and we just be cast down, and we depressed, and we doesn't know. But you know what, Dana? God is hearing our prayers. And Daily Prescription family, while we're in the season of praying, don't be cast. Let's be like Elizabeth. Have that right attitude to hold. So even so all of us is a challenge, right? Because all of us are in some types of situation. We feel like we're praying so many times, or praying for so much things, or so many big things that we have not seen change, or we haven't seen a situation being answered. We're just having that faith, and to ask the Lord to encourage our faith in this situation, because she believed on the promise of God. And when the Holy Ghost, or this great when this happened and she experienced the Spirit of the Lord, she brought forth a son, and his name was John. And this fact that an old woman bringing forth a child at this old age is a miracle in itself. And the attitude that she had throughout the journey is also a miracle in itself.
It is. And the thing is, it's such a challenging shoes to fill when you think about it, because the characteristics is so real, and so you're wondering if it could even keep up. Because there's so many things that we fall short of every single day. But you know what, in Luke 1 verse 36 and 37, it records where Elizabeth was old, yet she did bear a son, right? And this goes to show that God can really do anything. And Ali, you mentioned about the timing. Now, it have this saying where we could see in front of us, but we can't see around the corner. It goes to show that it mightn't be next week or next month. Like Elizabeth, it could be a couple years. But I think we, as God is doing his part and working on our behalf, right, to keep his promises that he promised to us, as we are here holding on, we have to trust him wholeheartedly, even though we're not seeing answers. Because yes, sometimes me personally would be praying for certain things and may not see the results that I want or I hope that I would have been seeing in a certain timing, but my timing is not God's timing. And I think Daily Prescription viewers, it's important for us to understand that God is working on our behalf, and he is hearing our prayers, as Ali did mention. But it mightn't come to pass the way that we expect, or the time frame that we give in God, because we can't give God a time frame. He knows exactly what he is doing. And yes, Arlene, we know that we say God by tomorrow, by next week.
Then
No,
I
it
have some
doesn't
of us
work
is
like
spread
that.
on prayers. I would call no names.
I know. You don't need to call no names. I have friends like that too, right? But daily prescription viewers, it's just to encourage you all that yes, you might be praying for something, but do not lose hope, do not
Yeah.
lose your faith, do not lose trust in what God has promised to us, because his word will not lie to us, and God can do anything. Just as for Elizabeth here, we saw where she passed the age of bearing a child,
Yeah.
right? Which means her body would have been pale and weak, and a lot of changes would have happened,
Mhm.
right? But still, we saw that it wasn't impossible, and God gave her that promised child that he had promised the years before. So that is my take of Elizabeth today. So Arlene, back over to you.
Yeah, and just try the same verse right after. And as we've been saying, verse 37, I'm encouraging you all to read, for with God nothing shall be impossible. And you mentioned to this earlier, Dana, you said in verse 45, and blessed is she that believe, for there shall be a performance of those things which the Lord had told her from the Lord. So daily prescription family, I encourage you to blessed is she that believe, blessed in the daily prescription family who believe in God today, believe that he's able to work it out, continue to pray, continue to seek him, for with God and nothing shall be impossible. Do have an awesome Thursday.